Good morning. Welcome to One Yard Wednesday. I'm Colleen from GEDesigns, and we have a great show for you this morning. One Yard Wednesday is the show where we have fun and creative ideas for fabulous fabrics at fantastic prices. And today we have a mixture collection, a black and white collection that I think you'll find really interesting. Just a reminder that the prices on the fabrics will be live as soon as the show is finished. So don't be in a hurry to go out there and search for these fabrics. When we're all finished the show, the prices will be live. I have a question for you this morning. The question is, how can we use contrast to make our fabric choices more appealing? Well, we did a little research, and we will talk about that when we're finished. Before we look at the fabrics, let's take a look at the jewel quilt behind me and a couple of other examples of jewel that really illustrate the contrast we were talking about. This version of jewel right behind me is black and white and so cool, and you can see that it works great. These are all different blacks and all different whites, but very tone on tone, so it just reads black and white. This high contrast in color is a really classic combination. The next jewel that we have a photo of here is jewel in contrast in color. This is called lipstick, and this is a very interesting and fun collection of color where we use, like I said, we use the contrast of color to really make a statement in this quilt. The third jewel example is one where we have low contrast. So low contrast in color, low contrast in value, and low contrast in scale. And so it's just a great illustration of high contrast isn't better than low contrast. Just be mindful of how these are going to play together and how your quilt will look at the end. So cool. I always love going into the archives and finding pictures of quilts. We have so many beautiful quilts, as you know, and I'm having fun learning lessons from each and every one of them. Well, we have a collection of 10 fabrics today. 9 of them are Andover, 1 is Moda. Let's go ahead and take a look. The first fabric is my favorite. This is Sunprint Light Collection Shadow. That's a big name for this fabric, which is so cute. It's a small print on a white background, and the prints are flowers and rabbits and thimbles and hearts and diamonds and spades. Really a fun and eclectic black and white collection of images. This would be a great add to my black and white collection for sure. I would enjoy using this particularly as a lining for a black and white bag. Every time I look inside of it, it would put a smile on my face. Next up is the X Plus, and this print gets its name because it has an X and it has a plus, and the color is Night. I made a quilt using the X Plus Night for a backing, and I love how it turned out. I did a little fussy piecing so that the print maintained its integrity, and it really was a striking backing. So grab the X Plus and add it to your collection of blacks and whites as well. Next is this really fun print with stars and dots and purples and pinks. This is Astrologica Star Splatter Unicorn. Love this. Anybody who loves the constellations or the stars would really get a kick out of this one. As they would Star Splatter Night. So the same print in a black background with the stars and moons in oranges and pinks. Love these two together. Next up, isn't this pretty? This is Astrological Constellations Glisten. So it's a kind of a creamier background, and the constellations are a fun gold color, and really love that one. Next up, Constellations Night. So the same print as this one with the black background and the purple constellations. I love this one as well. Next in line is a print called Between Dawn and Dwell. This is a beautiful white with a print of stars and moons and clouds and very, very, very low volume. So this is going to read more as a solid than anything else in your collection, and it's so subtle that it doesn't come across directional either. It would be just perfect. Then we have Sun Print Stitched Blackbird. Isn't this fun? Black with the stitching. These are flowers and moons and different kinds of shapes with a stitched look. So fun. And then Sun Print Light 20 Honey. Some of these fabrics have big names, I'll tell you. It's the collection that they come from, and this collection is pulling ones and twos from a variety of Andover collections. I love this honey tone, and the prints here are geometrics that I think are real interesting, and I can imagine using them a lot. And finally, from Moda, we have Ghost Moon. So the white background and then the gray dots that look actually like phases of the moon, and you can see how the gray is in gradations as you look at this from afar. Really pretty. It's time for I've Got a Notion. My Notion today is a tool that I have handy all the time. It's the Gypsy Quilter Seam Ripper. There are a couple of things I like about this. First of all, I like the size of it. It's just right for my hand and easy to hold on to, and I don't drop this one. It's just right. I like that when I open this will fit here if I needed to, or I'll just put it down, and it works great that way. It still has a nice size to it. It is nice and sharp, and I'll give you a little demo of how easy it is to use. I'll place this in between and cut a couple of stitches here, and really sharp, and it's going to go through this just right. So once I get this seam open, okay, because I'm trying to hurry, it's going to go slow. All right, now I'll show you my next favorite thing I like about this seam ripper. I can give it a little brush like this, and this rubber tip and this rubber tip will help to pick up all these little threads. So they're not going to appear in my quilt. They're not going to be sticking out of my seams. This will be all tidied up from using that little bit of a rubber stopper. And I can clean them out just like that and tidy this up. So my notion today is the Gypsy Quilter Seam Ripper. Well, the question of the day is, how can we use contrast to make our fabric choices more appealing? And I want to start out by saying it's not about whether it should be high contrast or low contrast. It's about thinking about contrast and using it very intentionally. In its contrast of color, its contrast of value, which is essentially lights and darks, and its contrasts of scale. In other words, the size of the prints in your pattern. Today's fabric collection is made up of contrasts in color, basically blacks and whites. And when they say opposite attracts, we know that that's true when we're looking at black and white. A black and white quilt is a far more interesting quilt to my eye than a quilt that is black alone or white alone. The black and white really play off of each other and are very energizing. The use of black and white is a great example of how these two divergent colors communicate really powerfully. So think about when you put your colors together for your next quilt, how am I going to manage contrast? Am I going to think about the same color in different values? Am I going to think about different colors in different values? Or am I going to think about scale? And all of those will come together just great and make for you a beautiful quilt. Let's take a minute to review the fabrics and the quilt right behind me one more time. In terms of the fabrics, we have Ghost Moon from Moda, which is beautiful. We have the Sun Print Light 20 Honey. Sunprint Stitched Blackbird, the black with the stitched line. Dawn and Dwell, very subtle, very tone on tone. Constellations Night. Constellations Glisten. Star Splatter Night. Star Splatter Unicorn. Our Art Theory X and Plus in Night. And finally, the Sunprint Light Collection in Shadow, the collection of the tiny prints. I think this is a great collection of blacks and whites. I might not use them all together, but they will all be great adds to quilts. My recommendation in terms of a notion this week is the Gypsy Quilter Seam Ripper. Again, I love this. I try and keep it handy. It grabs and easily removes all the loose threads. And I like the size of it because it's easy for me to hold on to. And don't forget the quilt behind me, which is Jewel, and you can see Jewel on the front here. Jewel is a quilt from Stripology Mixology 3, and it is a great quilt to put together and will look fabulous every time. Well, thank you for tuning in this week. Let me know what questions you would like us to answer as we do a little bit of research into color and texture and value and manufacturers and anything quilting or fabric related. We'd love to do a little study with you and for you. I'm Colleen, that's Mr. GP. Grab yourself your Stripology ruler, grab some of these fabrics, and make yourself something wonderful. Have a great week. See you next time.